Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for this career session at the TIDES Converging Approaches to Sustainable Resilience Capabilities demo, hosted by Mason's Center for Resilient and Sustainable Communities. Our speaker today is Fritz from the Defense Logistics Agency. Robert Scott joined the Army in 1993 and served in various assignments and positions during his career, culminating as the Army's senior enlisted advisor for recruiting policy and operations located at the Pentagon. He retired in 2018 with over 25 years of service. And after retirement, he spent a year working in the technology industry before rejoining the federal workforce in 2019 as a career manager with the Defense Logistics Agency. Scott is a graduate of the University of Akron, and today he will be talking with us about navigating USAJobs and the federal government hiring process. There will be time for questions following the presentation, but I also would really encourage you to post questions in the chat throughout the presentation, and I will be posting links as well to an attendance sheet throughout. So please complete that when you can. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our first speaker, Robert Scott. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And thanks, Dr. Torres. It's a pleasure to be here today and welcome everybody to what I hope will be an informative discussion this afternoon on the federal hiring process and navigating USAJobs. We had a short little discussion about this before everybody joined. And as Dr. Torres mentioned to me, USAJobs is not a very intuitive system, nor is the federal hiring process an intuitive process. It is long, it is arduous, but hopefully what you'll take out of this today is a sense of knowing how to work within the confines of that process, how broken it may be, and find yourself a little bit more success along the way. So with that, I'm going to shift over to my slides, and we're going to talk about this very briefly, and then we'll get to some points and counterpoints on the process. So the federal hiring process starts with a single point, and that is the need to hire someone for a position. So we have to have a vacancy, right? All vacancies and job announcements must go through the USAJobs to be filled per the Office of Personnel Management guidelines. So any and all jobs that belong to the federal government will be through USAJobs. Now, some agencies have other systems you may see. I know that the FBI, the DEA, some of the other three-letter agencies have their own subsystems, but the application process starts with USAJobs minus a few internship opportunities that you may find out there.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you want to share your screen?
Oh, am I not sharing?
No, I cannot see it.
Okay, hold on. Let me get back here. Let's try this again. I clicked on it. Maybe I was too quick to click. There we go. How about that?
There it is.
There we go. Trust me, you didn't miss much. All right. So once again, the first thing you have to do once as a user, you have to create an account. So we log into USAJobs. There'll be a login or create new account section in USAJobs. You'll click create your account, and that'll take you through a litany of questions about yourself, background information, personal information to help you create that profile. And it'll ask you some questions of what you're looking for. And then once that is done, then you can go on to looking for a job and learning more about USAJobs and the federal government process. So we're going to start with the creation of an account. We'll talk about setting up searches and refining your search opportunities, and then getting your updates, staying informed with your searches, after you've applied, and then also learning more about the federal government through the help section within the USAJobs. So once again, here we are, USAJobs, this wonderful system that we use. So you log into usajobs.gov, and you will start at this front screen here. It looks a little bit different. They recently updated it. I didn't have a chance to go do these new slide captures, but it's very much the same. So it'll start right here. to create your account. And this, once again, walks you through a litany of questions: first name, middle name if you want to supply it, last name, home address, all the fun stuff, just a lot like any other enrollment process for any other website you've gone onto. Facebook, Instagram, those types of things, right? Asking for all this similar information. So this is not something that's foreign to anybody to go ahead and create your account. So once you put in all your personal information in your account, in your profile, it's going to ask you take you to another page for uploading documents, right? So it's going to ask you if you want to upload a resume or build a resume on USAJobs. What I will say to you is do both. So the one thing you want to have is USAJobs is it takes a while to go through an application process. So the one thing you want to have is I recommend staging different types of resumes depending on the agencies you want to apply for. For example, being a human resources person like I am, if I applied for a human resources position with the State Department versus Defense Logistics Agency, my resume is going to look different for both of them based on what one agency needs over the other agency. So I usually tell people to build your resume in USAJobs and have that as kind of like your canned resume, your go-to. If you find the job that pops up that you want to apply for, but you don't have time to really tailor your resume to that job, it's a very detailed resume that you can use to encompass the majority of the jobs you might want to apply for. And your uploaded resume should include those details for each job that you want to apply for. We'll talk more about that process later. So build your resume, upload your resume, and then upload any other type of documentation that might help you, whether it be your college transcripts. If you're a recent graduate, your degree. If you're a veteran, upload your discharge paperwork, your DD-214. If you're a disabled veteran, upload your discharge paperwork plus your Veterans Administration paperwork. All of these things are going to help you as you go through the application process. Plus, a lot of those documents are mandatory depending on the jobs you're applying for. So once you do all that, once you upload your documents, you create an account, now you can go and you can search for jobs. And it's as simple as doing one thing. You click on search jobs and you can go through a simple, like a Google search, to where you type in, administrative, human resources, engineer, whatever you want, whatever type of job you want to search, you type it in, or you don't even have to search. You can just put browse jobs and it'll ask you for your zip code, and you can put in, it'll pull up all the jobs within usually a 50-mile radius of your zip code that are open. Or you can go and you can set up, once you do a search, you can go and you can set up a search engine inside the USAJobs that'll keep on looking for those types of jobs over and over again and email those to you. But you want to go search for a job. You want to find your next opportunity. So when you hit search, this is just an example of some of the things that you may find. You may look for, this search was done for an auditor. So here's all the auditor positions that are available within this person's area. So looking for Virginia, we're not keying in on any type of zip code, and here's what popped up. Now you can also refine your search by salary, by grade, if you know the general schedule grades, or the other pay band grades, and you want to search for that. Certain occupations. So basically, what you're going to do is you're going to walk your search down to the granular level of what you're actually looking for, to include if you only want to look for jobs within the Defense Logistics Agency, which I hope is the case for most of you, because we want you to come work for us, right? So then you only search for jobs within a Defense Logistics Agency that have certain work schedules. So you can kind of tweak this search and refine it based on what your needs, wants, and desires are as the applicant. So there's a lot of great functionality in here. As tedious as this process is, they did do a lot of good work on the front end to try to help you refine your search opportunities. So once you find the job, you're like, hey, this is really this sounds like me, right? So you click on that job and you'll come to a screen that looks a lot like this. It'll give you an overview of what the job is, the summary of the job, the duties and responsibilities of the job, which we're going to come back and talk about that later, because those are the answers to your test. So your summary and the duties and responsibilities located inside USAJobs is exactly what you want to key in on when you do your application. And we'll talk more about that later. Then I'll talk about the salary range, how long this position is open for, so how long you have to apply, the series, the grade, so on and so forth. So it's everything from soup to nuts. It'll walk you through of what this job offers and what this job does, and all the way through until, and it'll also give you a point of contact at the end if you have any more questions to reach out to those folks. As you see over here to the right, questions about this job can be referred to this person or this office at this number or this email address. So keep all that stuff in mind. Like I said, we'll talk about that in just a second. So once you decide, hey, I want to do this, you're going to click on apply. And once you click on apply, you'll go through and it'll ask you a series of questions. And what these series of questions are designed to do is, one, gather personal information that may or may not be located in your profile for USAJobs. So a lot of this stuff is going to auto-populate from your USAJobs profile. So it'll ask you certain things that's not auto-populated. The other thing it's going to do is ask you questions about your experience. And this is where I think a lot of young people now get tripped up on what to do, because it's going to ask you, have you ever had experience, like let's talk about auditors. Have you ever had experience auditing a Department of Defense contract? Well, no, you haven't. Very few people have, as a matter of fact. But if you've ever had experience auditing a contract, that is essentially the same thing, right? Contracts are contracts. They may look and feel a little bit different, but they're still contracts. Have you ever been taught about how to audit a contract, right? So I tell you this to say that don't disqualify yourself as you go through these questions, right? There's people out there that are hired, and there's algorithms that are written to go through and look at your answers, and then once you get to a certain point, look at your resume versus the answers you provided, right? And then have you support the answers that you put in there. So if you have experience auditing contracts, they're just not Department of Defense contracts, then the answer is yes, you have that relevant experience. Or if you don't have a year's worth, because most of the time they're going to ask you for 1 year or 52 weeks, whatever the wording they use is, of experience, or a combination of experience and education, right? So you want to take that and marry those two things together. It's kind of like a Reese cup, right? You want to take the chocolate and the peanut butter and make something really good. So take your education and take your experience and make sure that you highlight that together in your resume. And that's so very important. But once again, we're going to hit on the resume piece here in just a second. But after you go through all these questions, answer all those questions about your experience and your background, then at the end, it's going to ask you to upload the documents that are relevant to the hiring authority in which you applied. So if you're a veteran and you're using Veterans Hiring Authority, you want to upload all of your veterans documents, whether it be VA documents, your DD-214 with your discharge certificate, things like that. And then once you do that, you're going to click on apply for this position, and there it goes. It goes off into to Cyberland and is waiting in the queue for this job announcement to close. And once it's closed, then it'll go through an automatic adjudication process first. And then if you are lucky enough to be referred to the hiring manager, you've hit all the automated points within the system, then it'll be referred to a hiring manager. And that's when a person's going to sit down and look at your resume and apply your answers to the application with your resume, do a quick screen and say, yes, we want to hire this or interview this person, or no, we do not. So how do you know where your application is at in the process? Well, a lot of times you don't. So you go back, you log back in after it closes, and you won't hear anything. It'll be crickets on the system. You won't get any emails. You won't get any phone calls. That's okay. Don't get discouraged. That's the way the system works. So I tell people, look, quick story. So I was in your position 2 years ago when I retired from the Army. I needed to find a job. I needed to find what I want to be when I grew up. I spent 25 years wearing a uniform and having people tell me what to do every day, and had a job description that was very detailed, right? To then walking out of that lifestyle into something unknown and foreign. I hadn't been a civilian in my entire adult life. So I went on and I had over 175 active applications at one time on USAJobs, and I was on there every single day, like every 5 minutes. I was like an expectant parent in the waiting room, right? I was clicking refresh. I was doing all this stuff, hoping something would change. Don't do that. You'll drive yourself crazy. So go in, check it once in the morning, once in the evening, and let it go. If they don't, because usually what happens is updates happen overnight. So it'll either hit first thing in the morning or sometime in the afternoon, depending on the agency when they update their part of the system. But trust me, you'll get updates. We'll go check it once or twice a day and let that be that. A lot of times no news is good news. Let the process work. But when you do get an email or you do walk in there and you say, hey, something's changed, it'll go from, usually the first thing you see is application received, letting you know that, hey, everything went through. The agency has what they need, and they will review it once it closes. And then it'll go on update from there, whether it be referred, not referred, ineligible, something along those lines, right? And if you wanted a list of all of the statuses, you can go into the help section of USAJobs. They'll give you all the statuses, but I'm not going to bore you with those details. But usually it'll say referred, not referred. Those are the top two that agencies use and click. And it'll give you an example why. If you're referred, it'll say, you'll click on the status. It'll give you among the best, you're just qualified, depending on what they say. If you're not qualified, it'll tell you why. But you go in there, you'll click on a little hyperlink below the application status and say more information underneath. Like on this case, where it says application received, more information, that's where you're going to find the information about your status and what the actual updates are and when it happened, right? And they'll take you to a details page and that's where you're going to get you'll get your history of your application package, when you submitted it, all the updates, when the updates happened, and things like that. So once you click the more details, it'll take you right here. Now, one thing important about this page here is, let's say that you walk through and you apply for something that it has not closed yet. And you're like, you know what? I graduated in the time, since then, and I have my diploma now versus having, my transcripts. I want to upload those. Or, you know what? I think I messed up this answer to this question. I should have marked this, but I marked this. You can go and you can click and change your answers. You can add new documents. You can update any of your other information, as long as you do it during the time frame of when the job is open. So I highly recommend that once you apply for a job, save. You can print the file, the copy of your application, and review it. Maybe not right away, but at least within 24 hours of applying, so that way you can step away from the application because it is long, and then go back to review your answers to make sure that you put your best foot forward in that process. And the great thing is you have, unless you apply for it at the 11th hour on the last day, you have some time to go in and change things if you need to, or update any documentation that you may have forgotten. So very important. This is a very good page, your application manager page. It's a very important page to you as you go through it and you track your applications and what's going on. So things to remember: carefully review the job announcement and instructions. Reading is fundamental, right? Don't think you got it. Make sure you follow the bouncing ball all across every paragraph, every word in there, so that you understand that what you're applying for, at what level it is, at what agency, what requirements are. If there's any promotion opportunities within this position, if there's any travel involved in this position, if there's any telework involved in this position, what your security clearance or background investigation levels are. All these things are very important for you to know, because if you just got out of jail, you're probably not going to be able to get a security clearance. So you might not want to apply for a job that requires a top secret clearance, right? Which I'm sure doesn't apply to anybody. I'm kind of being funny when I say that, but those things are very important for you to read and understand before you apply for a job. It may sound really great, but there may be some things in there that you don't want. So ensure that you submit, an accurate resume and required documents. We already covered that. It's very important that you align yourself, put your best foot forward, and you do everything that needs to be done. Because if you forget to upload your college transcripts, you just disqualified yourself for that job once it closes. And that's a shame, because you may have been the best candidate for that position, but because of an oversight, now you have to try again with another agency or another position. So be very detail oriented when you're walking through these jobs. Complete the assessment questionnaire. Don't leave answers blank, even if they don't apply to you, even if they're right in. Put NA or none or write in not applicable, and make sure there's something in every block before you submit your answers. Any blank answers, if they're required, that means you just disqualified yourself from that job. And then once again, check your application status, once or twice a day, no more, but definitely do it before the job closes to make sure that, one, it says received and not pending, to make sure that they got it on the day that the application is supposed to close, or somewhere along those lines. But you should always see all applications should say received before you just forget about them and let the process work. Yep, wrong way. All right. So the other things about USA Jobs is a helpful information section on the Info Center. The Info Center is great. There's always up-to-date training in there. So if you're like, you know what, Robert talks so fast, I don't understand what he was saying, but I want more information on what should I do on USA Jobs. It's like ragu spaghetti sauce, right? The commercials say it's in there. Everything you want is in the information center. So it's right there for you to use at your convenience. All your questions are there. And a lot of times what they'll do, what OPM will do, as well as these sessions like we're doing today, they have them periodically throughout the year to help new people to USA Jobs, walk them through. Now, if you listen to OPM give the course, USA Jobs is the best invention since sliced bread. They love it. It's great. And it's streamlined the federal hiring process. That the opinion is not shared by every agency, but hey, it's their baby. So of course it's going to be the cutest baby in the crowd, right? So, but I say that to say expectation management when you're applying for jobs in the federal government with the system, it goes down periodically for maintenance and won't come up until a couple of days before jobs close. So once again, don't wait until the last minute to do anything on USA Jobs. This is a concerted effort to find federal government employment. So it's a very serious thing. So make sure you put your best foot forward at all times. Start early in the process. Don't wait until the 11th hour, unless you just missed the job or the opportunity just came across. Make sure you take your time to give yourself enough time to walk through. And there's some of these jobs require assessments after you apply. So if you get an assessment, an assessment after you applied for the job, you already did your application, that's a good sign. That means that the system has found you otherwise qualified and wants more information, and the agency wants more information on you. And a lot of these assessments are non-cognitive assessments, right? So a lot of times there is no right or wrong answer. It's going to say, what would you do in this scenario? How would you handle this scenario? When walking down the street, if you see an injured animal, would you further injure it or would you pick it up and try to help it? Right? It's things like that they're structured for agencies to try to find the best fit for what their agency is looking for. So there is no right or wrong answer. There's only answers that the agency put in that they're looking for within a certain range. So all these things are rolled up together, and you get a range score which you'll never see. But make sure you take your time on those assessments. Those assessments are good for 2 years. So if any other agency uses those same assessments, then what you score on it, which remember, you don't know what you scored on it, is going to follow you for 2 years because you will not be reassessed until that assessment expires. So once again, take your time every step of this process. Be very diligent and detail oriented with what you're doing. And that is the end of that part of the slide. So I'm going to stop sharing. We'll go back to having a little bit of a discussion on everything leading up to USA Jobs and your application. So, and then I'll talk a little about interviews briefly. So the resumes. Every time that you apply for a job, if you have the time, I recommend taking the application or the job announcement itself. Look at the summary. Look at the duties and responsibilities. And then whatever that agency is looking for, you tailor your resume to fit those details within the duties and responsibilities and the summary. I'm not telling you to lie, fib, cheat, but once again, we talked about the auditor. It's going to ask you for if you have 52 weeks or 1 year experience, paid or unpaid, or a combination of education and experience that's good that within auditing Department of Defense contracts, right? The answer is no for everybody. But if you know how to audit contracts, then the answer should be yes. But it needs to be in your resume. So you need to put it in there and make sure that it's outlined in either your education or your work experience or both, that you have experience in auditing contracts. That's what they're looking for. Don't disqualify yourself by saying no because you're getting caught up on all of the words. Like I said, reading is fundamental. Don't read into things. but make sure you look at exactly what they're asking for, and take out certain things like Department of Defense. If you don't work for the Department of Defense, things like that, that's not important. What's important is, do you have experience auditing contracts? But take those summaries, do these responsibilities, tweak your resume for those types of jobs every single time. It sounds like a lot of work, but finding a job is a full-time job. Especially I take it back. Finding a career is a full-time job. Anybody can find a job. It's that career. It's just things that make you happy, that you're passionate about, that take time, and it should take time. And so you owe it to yourselves to put that time in there, because you're investing in you and you're investing in your future. And you want to put your best foot forward. You want the best opportunities, and you want the hiring manager, people like me, when we read your resume and we look at your application, be like, you know what? I need to talk to that person, because that person seems like they get it. They're intelligent, and they're exactly what we're looking for, right? So take the time to do that. And when you format your resume, make sure you take the time to format it correctly. I always say bookend it. You want to start off with, put your best foot forward, start off with those big ticket items that you have, whether you graduated with honors, you have some type, your experience is exemplary, whatever it is, put that forward, and always try to end with something good, because people have a tendency to remember the first and last thing they read. And we don't have a whole lot of time to go through the resume. So please, take the time to do that. So if you're lucky, getting out of the resume piece, make sure you update it for every opportunity, and then put your best foot forward in your resume for that. If you're lucky enough to get referred and get an interview, walk in there, take a copy of your resume. I see too many people walk in empty-handed. Take a copy of your resume, because one, if you have a professional summary on your resume, that's your introduction. When they ask, tell me about yourself, they don't want to know that you like bunnies and long walks on the beach, right? They want to know who you are as a professional, and that could be encapsulated in your resume as your 5-minute elevator speech for your introduction. And when they ask you, tell me about yourself, and sometimes you get nervous, you forget what you wanted to say. Well, it's right there on your paper, right? Your resume is kind of like your agenda. It's your outline of what you want to talk about, because that's where everything's going to lead. A lot of times they're going to do what they call the behavior-based interviewing. So they're going to ask you scenarios. So when you walk in there, have some scenarios ready based on your work experience or your education. Once again, the reason why you have your resume is to kind of help you pull from those experiences to answer those questions on what would you do, or have you ever been in a position where you, so on and so forth. And then lastly, interviews go both ways, especially in the federal government. So don't be afraid to walk in there and ask poignant questions. Ask them how you did on the interview. Tell them that you want the job if you want it. A lot of times they won't give you feedback. You have to ask for feedback. I always say, use the line, based on the information that that we've discussed today and information provided by me, is there any concerns about my ability to perform the duties in this position? That forces them to give you feedback. And I think you deserve feedback because you're out there to learn. And I want to learn and get better. And interviewing is an art form, and practice makes perfect. So we don't get a chance to interview very often, and you never interview usually don't interview with the same people twice. So you get one shot at it. So always take the opportunity to practice a little bit. Use your network. Career services, friends. Ask those questions. And I have no problem. I'm on LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn. Connect with me. I have no problem looking over your resume. As a matter of fact, I have probably 25 resumes to look at from the last clinic I did with Matt Myers and the career services folks. I like doing that. It's fun for me. So, if you have any questions or comments, reach out, because, I look at all of you now as a part of my network. I had mentors that I looked up to that helped me along the way, and so should you. And it's all about, especially in this area, it's 50% of what you know, and the other 50% is who you know. So if you can get a leg up on the competition in your peer group to set yourself apart, then why not? And there's nothing wrong with that. So with that, I'll close with this session about the hiring process. Other than, once again, expectation management. Once you apply to the time that you get interviewed until a selection is made, it's usually about 60 days. And during times of COVID, it's been, and sometimes upwards of 90 to 120 days. So just be patient, keep your head up, be positive, and even if you get a no today, that's one step closer to a yes tomorrow. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Torres and you guys for any questions.
Thank you so much. So we have about 10 minutes if anybody has any questions. You should be able to unmute yourself, and we have a small enough group today that would be manageable. So feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question, or go ahead and type it into the chat box if you're feeling shy. But to start it off, I can ask a question.
Sure.
So I was wondering if you would be able to clarify a little bit more the grades. You showed how you can filter jobs by grades or by salaries. Can you speak a little bit more to what those grades are?
Yeah, absolutely. So USAJobs in the federal government, you'll have grades. Let's say GS is the most common, this general schedule. And they range anywhere from a GS1 all the way up to a GS15. And those grades have salary ranges associated with them. So if you the magic of Google, if you go out there, you can Google and you pull down a pay chart of what those are. But usually for an entry level, recent graduate type of programs like the Pathways program, they usually start out at a GS7, and a GS7, it ranges anywhere from right around 43,000 to about 56,000. Don't quote me on that. I didn't pull up the schedule with me, but you can. But that's kind of gives you a range. And a lot of times it'll say on the announcement as well that this is a GS7 with a target grade. That means if it says target 12, for example, that means there's promotion potential up to the GS12 level, and it'll give you a range of 43,000 to 82,000, right? Which is a huge range of income. But what that's telling you is that a GS7 step 1, so every GS level has 10 steps in it. So a GS7 step 1 gets paid 43,000 ish, and a GS12 step 1 makes 82,000 ish. So that's what those levels mean. There's also other pay bands out there like YNs, LLs, LV, and then there's also a litany of other things that are other pay categories that you can fall into. But the most common is going to be GS. But it'll also give you a description in the job announcement and in the search engine.
Great, thank you. So Alexandra asks if it's better to err on the side of caution and add too much information in a USAJobs application. For example, they don't all ask for cover letters, none of them ask for letters of reference, etc.
So 2 things, and this is kind of gaming the system. One is I have a cover letter. I've never submitted a cover letter. Usually cover letters are more of a formal process. You see them more on the civilian side. Because it's kind of like writing a letter to the company and they want to see something as they can look at it at a glance and say, okay, are we interested in this applicant? Because USAJobs, every announcement gets roughly around, what was the average, about 1,300 or so applicants to every job. You literally, hiring managers have about anywhere to between 15 and 30 seconds to look at your resume. I'm not looking at a cover letter. I'm looking through the story. I'm looking to say, hey, this is what the application, this is what they say here. Where's that here? What's my most important things? Where can I find it? So have a cover letter, have it in there in case they ask for a cover letter. 9 times out of 10, you won't find agencies asking for cover letters. The other thing is your application is fill in the bubbles. Either you more times than not, you either be consider yourself expert, highly experienced or no experience or have had some education. Those are usually how, and you have to check the right bubble. My thing is always put your best foot forward. If you think that you have that experience, click yes. If you think you're an expert and you have it down, then say that you do, and then bolster your resume to meet the expectations of that answer, because people are going to look, well, why did you put expert here? I don't see expert level experience in your resume, right? But the details should be in your resume, because that's where you're going to make your money. And don't be afraid. The great thing about a federal resume is don't get stuck on the 1 and 2 pagers. I mean, I had a novella of a resume. I think my resume when I got this job was 9 pages long. How do I put 25 years on 2 pages? It's impossible. So they combed through it and found what they liked. I got an interview. So make sure that you always put your best foot forward in your resume. That's your first impression that gets you in the door for an interview. So don't be afraid to expand on what you've done and the outcomes of what you did.
Thank you so much for that. Are there other questions? Again, you can feel free to unmute, raise your hand, or go ahead and type them into the chat box. Well, I'll ask another while people think. You had mentioned, of course, that you were hoping that everyone here would want to apply for a job with the Defense Logistics Agency. Did you talk about what the Defense Logistics Agency is and what you do? And if
I did not, and I'd be
share a little bit.
I'd be happy to. So the Defense Logistics Agency overall as an enterprise is kind of like the Amazon of the government. Our customers are the whole of government and the warfighter. So we support soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, as well as agencies like FEMA, USAID, which you have someone from them coming up next, State Department, so on and so forth. So, my side of the agency, I'm part of the Defense Logistics Agency Energy. So we provide all the energy solutions for the whole of government. So anytime you're on a military installation or in a federal building, if you flick a light switch, we wrote contracts to supply the electricity. The warfighter overseas does not move a tank without our fuel. We procure all the fuel. Hurricanes in Puerto Rico, as another example, we barged over tons of fuel, generators, and equipment to get the island back up and running. We supply all the energy solutions to remote sections of Alaska. So anything that makes things move or go to get us to the moon, wherever. DLA energy is there to supply the energy solutions, as well as anytime you see a service member overseas, you see a vehicle, you see a uniform that was also made by other parts of the Defense Logistics Agency. So once again, we're like Amazon for the government.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Any other questions or comments? We're all friends. Don't be shy.
That's right.
All right. Well, if not, oh, look, there's another one here. So Beltina asks or says that they've been told the government agencies may occasionally hire non-US citizens or non-residents. However, they've never actually seen this reflected in reality. So is it a myth, or is it the case that sometimes government agencies might hire non-US or non-residents, non-US citizens or non-residents?
So all of the civilian jobs require U.S. Citizenship to apply. Now, when I was still in the military, we did have a couple programs for DACA and a few programs for other folks that were essential to national interest. For example, when we were in Iraq, Afghanistan, we were looking for native speakers, folks who could help us with cultural aspects of those missions. So we did, on the uniform side of the government, have had opportunities for folks. Yes, MAVNI. So exactly. And I managed the MAVNI program for the Army. So we did have opportunities for non-citizens on that side. And with MAVNI and DACA, those programs did allow for expedited citizenship after service or during service. But no, for all civilian positions, there is a citizenship requirement to apply as of right now, with the exception of, I think, contract personnel for translators, but those are contractors, not civilians.
All right, thank you again. So any other questions? We have some flexibility here. All right, well, if not, then thank you very much, Robert, for coming to speak with us. I appreciate it. And thank you all to those of you who have attended the session. Please do be sure to fill out the attendance sheet. If you haven't done that yet, it's been linked in the chat a couple of times. Also, please feel free to check out the CRASC website if you want to know more about the Center for Resilient and Sustainable Communities. We are c-rasc.gmu.edu. You can sign up for our listserv there. And I would also really encourage you to check out Mason's career services resources. They're fantastic, and it's definitely something you should check out. We do have in 10 minutes at 3:35 another talk from Stacy Terrell, who will be talking about exploring global health career opportunities at USAID. So I hope you'll stick around. And in the meantime, for our intermission, I'll be sharing a video about Mason Career Services. So thank you again so much, Robert.
It was my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, and I hope to see all of you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to stick in the session and stop recording.